Dr. Shroff, how are you today?
Doing well, Levi. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So, by way of introduction, you are a cardiologist and an expert at reading interpretations. You 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 ran your own cardiology. What do you call that?
It was a multi-specialty cardiology group. We built it from scratch from two of us to 22 cardiologists, offering all services, including EP, interventional cardiology, and all the sophisticated subspecialties, nuclear, echo.
Well, it is an honor to have you on the webinar today. As a part of the team, you are also the CompuMed Chief Medical Director, and one of the readers that our hospital clients often have the privilege of getting studies back from. So thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
And also the real belle of the ball is Marty Dale, who is the Director of Radiology at a regional hospital. And Marty, how many years of experience do you have doing this?
34 years experience in radiology.
That's almost how old I am. That's not true.
Oh, thank God. 12 years as director. So,
and Marty is actually a customer of CompuMed. So a lot of what we want to focus on today is Marty's perspective on life before and after the transition to CompuMed, and then Dr. Shroff sharing perspectives on why that was and why that is now, and then Laura with kind of the voice of CompuMed, sharing who we are, how we do it. So let us jump right into our presentation. And Marty, I realize that as a CompuMed representative, what we all want to know is how bad was it really?
it was bad. Their turnaround times for echo reads were actually some days 5 to 7 days to get a final report. So even though CompuMed didn't read for us all the time, they came in and filled those holes in that we had, and the turnaround became same day or next day. So the ordering physicians really enjoyed that. They liked that turnaround time. They got a result back to where they could treat their patient faster. That made better results for the patient in the long run. So that made a tremendous difference to a patient, getting that turnaround time faster, and our physicians.
And without talking about anyone, can you help me understand why it would take 2 days, 4 days, 5 days to get results back? What would cause that?
I don't want to implement or say anything. It was just,
what are some common causes of that?
common causes would be, he didn't like how the EMR had the report in it that he had to release, and it was cumbersome. So he made excuses. So VRAD's reports they come off structured report. So as they read them, they have that structured report built into the system. So when they're done reading it, they have a report. So they release it as they do it. So it's jolly on the spot.
Of course. And Dr. Shroff, you know these cardiologists. Why are the results often slow? What can be causes for that?
Well, I think depends on the institution. Some institutions have lack of numbers of cardiologists, so that if there's one guy coming there and he comes when he has a patient, he's not going to come to read non-invasive tests for patients that aren't his. So that may delay it by days. There are other institutions where, in those situations where you're busy doing clinical work, that is taking care of the sick patients, which is your highest priority. And the non-invasive readings become after the end of the day. And the end of the day becomes time for family and sleep time. And you kind of put it off to the next day because it isn't critical, because you don't know what the situation, you don't know what's in that echo, and you don't know why it was ordered. So you wait and defer it to the next day. And it's easy to defer it one more day after that because you're not going there and it's out of your way. You got to take a 30-minute drive to get to that hospital, or a 20-minute drive to get out of your car, get in. You're spending an hour and a half for one echo. Why would you waste your time doing that? It's not cost effective. It's not cost effective use of the doctor's time, and it's not cost effective from a business point of view.
I can agree with that 100%.
One phrase we often talk about is patient velocity. And Dr. Shroff, I know running a multi-specialty clinic, can you speak to patient velocity and how that impacts the business of medicine?
Well, it's clear that when a patient comes in the hospital with certain clinical events, that an echocardiogram or an EKG become critically important to have on the chart the results, because decisions are made regarding the next step. That is transfer, discharge, or more intensive care are dependent upon the information you glean from that echocardiogram or the EKG.
That totally makes sense. One thing, Laura, I know you've mentioned this before on the elasticity piece, is the quality of life of your staff is adversely affected by slow reads, not getting them delivered. Can you speak a little bit to quality of life and elasticity?
Well, I think from what CompuMed provides is filling in when needed. And it's really important. Part of this is we don't have minimums. So we have hospitals that we work with that when their doctor or doctors go on vacation, our team will fill in. And we work really closely with them on their scheduling. And so it fulfills the need of the hospital to still get their timeliness of their reports. And then it allows their cardiologist to have the vacation times that they need and the downtime that they need. So that's one of the benefits of CompuMed is our flexibility to have that elasticity in helping the hospitals with their scheduling. Also, if they're, down a cardiologist because they're hiring, we're a great partner for that.
That makes sense. Artie, I did want to touch on, you mentioned that part of the difficulty is that you were switching systems. You were changing over your packs. What happened there? And speak to that a little bit.
What happened there was we were partnered with another facility that we send our echoes to be read through. And they use a system called Merge. So we were in the process of changing out from GE packs over to smart medical packs. So we had some HL7 feeds going to them, some other orders, and I could not get them to work with me to get that back up and running. So it was coming to a point where we were going to be at an impasse of no one reading when a cardiologist wasn't on site. So I tried to work with them, and I got nowhere. So that's when Laura stepped in and we contacted her, and she worked diligently to get us up and going quickly to keep that minimum downtime from not having any services in place. And it happened.
That's a point that I think, and we'll touch on that later in the webinar here, but one area where CompuMed just absolutely shines is the technological prowess that we don't care what your EMR is. We don't care what your PACS is. We don't care where the information is. We can set up direct connection with any hospital. And one reason we can is because we probably already have. Laura, will you tell us, and this isn't the right time in the show, but I just want to touch on why CompuMed technologically could step in with Marty's system and just get the information out.
Well, I obviously biased, but I do believe that our technology platform is, for lack of better, it's EMR agnostic. So we can take in from any input and get it in our system, get it read, and then send it back to the customer. I know that's a very simplistic point on that. The reason is we built it that way, and we also have a very, very strong technology team, including our CTO, who he knows pretty much every PACS that's out there and every EMR that's out there. And so we built the system to be able to, again, be agnostic to our customer systems and to be able to have it free flow. At the same time, allowing our doctors to be able to read very easily too, to be able to get the reports back on a timely basis and quality basis, which is actually even more important than the timely. So the quality and the clinical expertise.
And thanks for pointing that out on the quality side. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. You mentioned something on the technology piece. Let's see, we're EMR agnostic, and I know our CEO likes to say we're like Uber. We're all about the platform, but the platform is only as good as the doctors that are on one side of it, right? So, Dr. Shroff, speak a little bit to our reading groups and kind of how that's managed.
Well, we have a very rigorous intake, first of all, of individuals who express desire to work for us. We vet them very carefully. We then after they get to know us and we get to know them, then we get them started and we have quality assurance ongoing in real time, 1-for-1 initially when they're reading echoes. It's usually me or one of the other senior people will be reviewing every echo that goes by the wayside so that they're not hanging out there. And then quality assurance continues on everybody, including myself. If there's ever an issue, we'll have 4 or 5 people review a study to make sure that we get the right answer back to the customer. Because it's important that we be right. And besides being quick and user friendly, you got to turn out good data. I always talk about consultants being the 3 A's: able, available, and affable. The affable part doesn't qualify so much in this kind of work, but the able and available is critical.
And one thing I know, Laura, you really jumped over some hoops very quickly for Marty's team was on the credentialing. Can you tell us a little bit about that story, about what was required and how you did it?
Well, and that's kind of the unsung heroes in the hospitals, is the folks that are responsible for both the credentialing and then also getting the doctors all signed up within their hospital to get paid, because if the doctors don't get paid, it's not worth the whole process. So our team is the manager of it. She's worked with another company for years, and I found her she was actually credentialing for another hospital for us. And she just works really close with them. She works really close with the doctors. We know how important that process is. And again, it's the unsung heroes, and it's very detailed, and it's the crux of it. So it's then, if we don't get paperwork in on time, the hospital credentialing board, approval board, can't approve our doctors. So we always make their deadlines. We always do anything possible to be able to get the temporary privileges also. And in the case of working with Marty and his team, we actually helped them a little bit, because it was, I think, bringing on a cardiology. Our cardiology reading group was a little bit faster than they were used to. So our team even helped through that process. And at the same time, we make sure that our doctors are available to sign every document that is needed. Our doctors are on top of it too. They know the importance of it. And again, it's the unsung heroes at the hospitals, is the credentialing department.
Thank you for explaining that, because I remember you referenced it, and I was like, I think there's more to that. So that was really good. So let's move on to there's the before: pain, sadness, everything slow, and then there's the after. Marty, in one word, sum up what CompuMed brought to the table.
Well, I'm going to put it on there. I think it's popped up before: speed. Because
speed.
Well, there's more to speed than just speed. So you got speed of reading, but you also have speed of getting the information to you. So we have a very robust internet connection, and you have a very robust internet connection. So not only do we get them read fast, but we get them to you fast to get them read fast. So speed is multimodality, multi-directional. So we get speed multiple ways.
That's very, very good. And some of the things that we're going to touch on here, you mentioned the frustration before. And unfortunately, no job is ever frustration free. But did bringing CompuMed allow a little breathing room? What did that feel like?
Absolutely. And I think I expressed this to Laura a week or so ago. The cardiologist at Reed Force had some back issues, went out for a week. I think I seen her text, "Hey, it's going to be out. Can you cover for us?" She picked it right up and read right on. So that gave us continuing care, even though they wouldn't even schedule to be on it. But an emergency happened and they picked it right up. So that took the kink right out of that.
That's that workforce elasticity. Go ahead, Laura.
Yep. And I just want to jump in, and again, that's the greatness of our doctor group. First off, as Dr. Schroff was mentioning, everybody has to be clinically experienced too, but there has to be a culture fit, and that fit is exactly that. Where I just reached out to him and he said, here's what we need to do, who's available which days, and they just doubled down and said, yeah, we can cover it.
And Laura mentioned earlier, every month before the month begins, I send her and the support staff a copy of the schedule. And it's marked on it which day that cardiologist will be off. So they know a month ahead of time what's going on. It's those days that pop up that he decides I'm going to take a vacation this week. It happens, or I got to be off here because I got to do something. It happens. So really to plug those holes up and keep them plugged up, you can't ask for any better.
Thanks, Marty. Next, I want to, point of personal privilege. I want to talk a little bit about the things that we make better. And Marty, I'm going to let you jump in for any of these, but you just mentioned if your cardiologist on staff needs to go to a kid's ball game or take a day off because of a back injury, those are all things that happen as a part of everyday life. But the side that we don't talk about is the clinician burnout, which is it's an epidemic. Dr. Shroff, can you speak a little bit to clinician burnout and just how it impacts the country?
Well, I think that it's real and it's a huge problem. And it's causing the generation after me in cardiology to retire early. The 55-year-olds and up are all looking for other jobs. They're tired of this kind of grind. When you think about it, I was trying to do the math for this. Looking at Marty's hospital is different than what I was thinking about, but I think about a hospital that has 3 staff cardiologists taking care of all the inpatient patients, all the consults and all the cardiovascular. So they're on every third night and every third weekend of call. And that night call is onerous. It's phone calls and going into the hospital for acute emergencies. So they're tired all the time. When somebody's on vacation, it's every other night and every other weekend. And you got to take vacations. You're not going to hire anybody who's going to say, I don't want vacations all year long. So if that individual, if I can run through these numbers, if you want me to, it's kind of, I thought it was interesting. The average cardiologist has 8 to 10 patients in the hospital. So 3 cardiologists are going to have 25 and 30 patients in the hospital for a weekend to round on. If you're rounding, it takes you 10 to 15 minutes to round on 30 patients. Do the math, that's 6 to 8 hours of rounding. That doesn't include consultations. It doesn't include emergencies with procedural stuff. So they're there, and that's not including any reading of studies. The hospital I was thinking about when I was doing these numbers has between 10 and 15 echoes each day on the weekend. That can take a cardiologist an hour to 2 hours to read. So add to that 6 to 8 hours of rounding without emergencies, another hour or 2 hours to read studies. So you're talking about already there 8 hours minimum on a weekend day, not counting being up Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, and having all these issues dropping down on you. It wears you down. It's exhausting. And when you're physically exhausted, you become mentally exhausted. You become not as nice a person. Your filters don't work as well. And it causes people to burn out and to say, Absolutely. I've had enough.
Absolutely. And where CompuMed steps in is essentially pressure relief valve, right? So for those studies that you don't need to be in the hospital to read those. We have the platform, we have the network, we've got the doctors over here, and the quality of life as a doctor reading studies, which you do as well, Dr. Shroff. Talk to me about some of the flexibility and freedom there, and why that works.
Because we have 24 hours to read most studies, there was a 24-hour timeline. I personally like to get them read the same day so that they're the next morning, because I know rounds, when I was rounding, I wanted to have the results of the previous day's testing when I rounded on a patient. It makes the decision-making process a lot easier. So I try, and most of the people in the group do the same thing. They really try and read during the day. Once or twice during the day, I'll pick up my computer and sit down and read for half an hour, and be done for the day. I can batch them. I'll read 5 or 6. If I get tired, I get up and put it away for an hour and then come back to it, or 2 hours. If there's a sporting event on, I can watch a sporting event and come back and do it. It's a very nice lifestyle for me as a semi-retired physician to do a good work, quality work, get personal satisfaction from it, and make a few dollars.
That is such a good point. That I wanted to touch on accurate and consistent reports. So I want to go Marty and then Laura. Marty, are they? And Laura, why are they?
Well, they are accurate because their physicians say they are, because they like those ones that CompuMed read. So actually, one of our retired pulmonologists, Dr. J.G. Patel, he really liked them, but he retired because they were simple reports that gave a precise diagnosis. He didn't kind of beat around the bush. Okay, it was, you got your report, off the structure report. The doctors give their final interpretation. You got a report, and it was good.
Why is that, Laura?
Well, again, it's because of the quality of our cardiologist is one part of it. There's something that we also work on in the front end is, especially Marty will understand this, when we're onboarding a new customer, we get sample reports, we get sample studies, we look at all of that, well, as part of the process and clear up anything. And there's a lot of back and forth conversations about that. Mm-hmm. Again, it's because of the quality of the PAC systems that we use to read these. And another is not just the consistency of the output of the reports, is because we somewhat, I would say limit, but as we don't have, we have as many doctors as we need, but we actually keep the reading groups kind of small per hospital, because certain hospitals have certain requirements and we can customize. So I would say that's a part of why there's consistent reporting. In like Marty's hospital, how he sees them. Other hospitals, there are certain things they may want and not want. We don't ever do anything that's not clinically, we don't compromise anything clinically. But if there are certain statements they do or don't want and that our doctors agree to, we can do that at a hospital level.
Brilliant. It's just what I thought you'd say.
Uh-oh.
Let's do a little overview of CompuMed as a solution. And Laura, I'd love for you to just give us a high view of what we are, why we are, how it works. Give us a little pitch.
Well, I'm not really great at pitching, but I am very passionate about what CompuMed does, because, there's truly, in my opinion, our three prongs, and one that we haven't talked about here. We've talked about our technology. We're very strong with that, and I feel like we have some of the best, and we're always looking at new technology, but we're also very careful on implementing it at the right time. The second is the doctors that we work with. Not only are they clinically, in my opinion, very, very talented, some of the best that there are out there, but they align with our culture. They actually, and I meant to mention this earlier, are available to talk to any of the hospitals for the physicians or ordering physicians. They have taken time to work with techs, with the echo techs as needed on some of our customers, saying, if we could do it this way, here's what we can get better for you. Where that really ties into is, we didn't mention on this, is CompuMed has been very focused on organ donation. We read for over, I think it's 70% of the organ procurement organizations, which are in hospitals throughout the country. And as a matter of fact, one of Dr. Schroff's statistics, if you will, is we believe he's read more echo hearts for donors than anybody in the country, maybe even in the world, since we've been doing this. And so we've been able to be really consistent on that too. And also on the communication, our doctors will talk to coordinators. Our doctors will talk to transplant surgeons at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, in the regular hospital reading, most of these are not in the stat scenario. CompuMed can provide those, but right now the majority of it is, within 12 hours, 24 hours. So, and then the other pillar that we haven't really talked about is our support team. We are incredibly customer centric. It's all about the customers, and it's all about making sure the doctors have the tools that they need. And they are behind the scenes 24/7, 365. I know that's kind of a saying, 24/7, 365. It's real. We had a case coming in last night, a special one on a donor. A couple of our people who weren't even on call were monitoring it as it was coming in to make sure everything got done at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Can I add one more thing to that list of three things that Laura said? To ethics. Ethics. I think the quality of people at the top filters down. They make good decisions based on what's right, not on what is financially expedient.
Absolutely right, and that's vital.
Sorry, can I add one other thing?
Please, Marty.
He is correct about support. Anytime that we have an issue, we just go onto the webpage. We'll send an email to support, and boom, they're calling you back, finding out what the issue is. They're correcting it. You're back going without no problem. Or if something is missing or something isn't quite right, they get in contact with us and we take care of it. So the support is really good.
Thanks, Marty.
When we talk about really hospital best practices, right? Dr. Roth, talk a little bit about how hospitals are transitioning to the asynchronous reads with offsite readers and why that makes sense.
Well, it makes sense because it's cost-effective use of personnel time. If you have hospital employee cardiologists, you want them taking care of the things that only they can do on site. And to add that extra 2 hours we talked about reading non-invasive testing at the end of the day brings about burnout. It brings about physician being unhappy. If they're unhappy, they look around for another opportunity. And there's a shortage of cardiologists nationally. It's a big issue. And there's job offers everywhere. And so that people want to take care. You get a prize of a cardiologist who gives a darn and does quality work. You want them to stay at your institution. You don't want to burn him out reading those routine studies that we're going to make him miss his kid's birthday party in the evening or missing seeing his family before they go to bed at night. I remember when I first started out, I used to come home from work and go and help get my kids in bed till 8 o'clock at night, between 5 and 8. And I'd go back at 8 o'clock and spend from 8 till midnight in the hospital. Physicians aren't willing to do that anymore. Cardiologists don't want to do that. Appropriately so. Lifestyle has become an issue. And you want to, if you're being plugged into a salary job, you expect to work a certain number of hours. You don't expect to work hours that are expandable to the nth degree.
Well, especially not in an industry that there are other places that want you. If you're going to work that much, you should be paid. I saw a job posting the other day for cardiologists and earn up to $1 million. Now this was in private practice, and obviously you would be working your face off. But I wanted to speak to the private practice, as I know that's an option for a lot of hospitals. There's private practice nearby. We could outsource our reads to them. But with CompuMed, we have the economy of scale that we have the entire system just fully baked out, ready to take the studies right from you, Marty, right out of your hot little hands, directly into the platform, and hand it to cardiologists who are standing by ready to read. And this isn't the time for the pricing conversation, but compared to private practice, we are so much more reasonably priced and accessible. Marty, do you want to speak to that at all?
I don't know the pricing because I really didn't get involved on that, but I know we took the model of the flat fee per read, then we do the billing for the professional component. So obviously we're still making money off of the read, and you guys are making money. So that solution worked for us and it worked for you guys.
Exactly. So
and back on that, so it's the actual, there, many components to the pricing and the benefit to the doctor, to the hospital. Yes, it is, the way that they're billing to the insurance provider. So there's for people that, understand it, who are on the call, is the technical component and the professional component. And it is a flat fee. CompuMed doesn't do the billing directly to any of the insurance. But there's also another piece of this too, which is you've got that Ecotech who is continuing to stay productive because there's somebody reading them, and the majority of them are salaried. So, you kind of divide their hours and the value of them, and you're keeping them productive. And the second is they have very expensive ultrasound devices. And they're keeping those ultrasound devices productive too. That's an asset that you want to keep active so that it's also paying for itself and the ROI on it. Just to talk a little bit of the number part of it, not the specific dollars, but that all comes into play on this too, and which ultimately, helps with the hospital's financials positively, while still meeting their patient care requirements and their missions.
Yeah, because we actually put a new ultrasound in place probably about 4 or 5 months after we went on CompuMed. So that wasn't a cheap piece of equipment, but it was a needed piece of equipment. So those echoes are gorgeous now. I think we've seen the state-of-the-art echoes.
Yeah.
The piece that I want to make sure we highlight here is that there are patients who need patient care, and if your hospital doesn't have the technical component, the piece of equipment in place, and the cardiologist, you can't provide that care. You have to transport. But the equipment's not that hard to get. The technicians aren't that hard to find. They're available and they're around. It's the cardiologist. That's the sine qua non here, the thing without which you can't provide this care. And with CompuMed, we just say, well, that's easy. Now all you need to do is tell the patients we provide care for this. Oh, do you need this test? Do you need, and as if by magic, now you have a fully functioning service line within your hospital that you didn't have to go find an impossible cardiologist. So I like them apples. Let's see. We are right at the end of our presentation, and I want to make sure we've kind of spoken to much of this, and I don't want to oversell the benefits, but we've touched on quality of life. We've touched on patient care, right? If you have patients needing care, we have cardiologists available to read those studies and get them back in a timely fashion, improve patient velocity. That does drive revenue by having services available that your community is going to need. Marty, as you so eloquently pointed out, the integration with your current PACS and your EMR it's kind of a no-brainer for our team, because in the organ procurement space, we've had to do it with every hospital on the whole country. So we speak that language. As far as having the staff available, Laura, you mentioned that we may have gotten one credentialing expert from another hospital. And now that's just something that we do as a part of our daily life. But every client who comes along, it's a house on fire. So for us, credentialing it's something we do quickly, we do it well, we document it, and we even make we make their job easier by answering all the questions in advance, getting everything before you ask for it, because it's what we do all day, every day. Now, we didn't touch on the fewer night and weekend patient transfers, but Marty, I think you can speak to, if you're going to get the studies back, you don't have to send anybody away, right?
Oh, no, yeah. We get that report back. The cardiologist we have now doesn't read anything on Friday. So CompuMed reads every Friday. So obviously that's the weekend. So generally if we have them on Friday before they leave, in the day, they get a report back, or they get it the next morning. So how we have her set up and structured, we don't have the EMR interfaced in yet. Kind of been thinking about that. Should we or should we not? But that's another issue. But we have it set to fax to the department in cardiology, to the third floor, and to ICU to make sure, hey, they're going to get to copy the report wherever it's needed.
Wherever you are.
Yeah, wherever you are, somebody's going to get that report and have it in hand that next morning or that evening for the weekend. So it's covered, without a problem.
Now, Dr. Schroff, you've spent a lot of time being patient-facing. We didn't talk a lot about it, but can you just give us a quick insight on patient satisfaction with faster reads?
Well, it's they get out of the hospital quicker. They get through the system faster. And it's patient care. The quality patient care makes for happy patients. I don't think there's any question about that.
That's right. You spoke to us a great deal about clinician workload and burnout, and having the non-essential essential tasks, the things that can be offloaded to somebody who's working on it and in the comfort of their own home and on their own schedule, and still able to turn these around within 1 hour or much less for stats, or within 24 hours for kind of a normal is a very, very easy fix. It doesn't solve all of the clinician burnout, but it takes the most onerous part of the job right off the table.
Nothing like sitting in the echo room in the dark at 6 o'clock at night when you want to be home having dinner with your family and knowing you have 2 hours of non-invasive reading to do before you can go home.
And it's not patient care. It's not customer facing.
No.
And then I think that basically gets us to the conclusion of our webinar. We have the physicians, we have the portal, we have which ties them all together. We have the support team. Marty, do you want to add anything? Anything you didn't say that you want to make sure gets said?
Not really. I just think that CompuMed does a really good job, and they have, like I said, filled in the holes that we had in their cardiology coverage, and they do it with the expert reads by physicians that are well qualified. So I don't have any complaints, And like I said, and Laura's always there when I throw a curveball at her needing coverage, and she covers you. So couldn't ask for any better than that.
No, we could not. So if you join us for this webinar, I want to make sure you know that this level of solution is available. Now, there are other ways to solve it. And it feels like the old commercial, if you don't get help from us, please get help somewhere. If you have patients, if you have cardiologists, if you don't have cardiologists, but want to provide some of these services, we'd love to help. We'd love to talk to you about what your needs are. If your house is on fire, we can move very quickly. If you're planning for the next fiscal year, we're also available for that. Our numbers on the screen, we're available. And Laura, anything you want to add to that?
I just look forward to working with anyone that needs our services, and we make it a number one priority to onboard you. And I think you'll be very happy with what the product is you get returned from us.